Pet Life Radio.
This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Welcome once again to another episode of Vet Candy's podcast in Other News, a podcast to expand your idea of what is impacting the veterinary world, veterinarians, and all animal care professionals as humans. We are your co-hosts, Dr. Jen.
And Dr. Jason Chatfield.
If you are not yet a Vet Candy subscriber,
why not?
Please subscribe for free today at myvetcandy.com. You can also reach us at jen@myvetcandy.com.
Or more importantly, my email, jason@myvetcandy.com.
Great. Our topic today is rabies.
Well, in other news, rabies is still a thing.
Yeah, rabies is still a thing. Did you know that, Jason?
I didn't until I read the topic today, and I said, what? Rabies is still a thing? I had no idea.
That's because we are American. So let's class this show up with an accent. How about that? So joining us today is Dr. Luke Gamble, who is, let me make sure I get the title right, Luke, the CEO and co-founder of Mission Rabies.
Yes, that'll do. Rock and roll.
Okay.
Hello.
And you hear that super cool accent.
Up my finest British accent.
That's right. We love it. We love it.
Which isn't the finest British accent there is, I'm sure, but I'll try. I'll try for you.
Well, I will tell you, it's the best we've had on this podcast, for sure.
There we go.
Hands down.
There we go. The first Brit.
That's right. And it instantly makes you sound smarter, right?
Okay, I'll take it. I'm taking all this. Lapping this up.
That's right. That's right. That's right, listeners. You know that it sounds smart when Luke says it with the incredible accent. Okay. So Jason started off by saying rabies is still a thing. So I ask you, Dr. Gamble, as a world-renowned professional, is rabies still a thing?
Yeah, it's very much still a thing. And it's a very sad thing. So a child dies of rabies about every 9 minutes around the world somewhere, and they die a horrible death. It's probably worse than being eaten alive by rats as far as deaths go. Mm-hmm. Rabies itself is the world's deadliest zoonotic disease. And a zoonotic disease is obviously one that is a disease you contract from animals. And it's one of the oldest diseases known. So it's been around for thousands of years.
If we say that it's one of the world's most deadly diseases, can you qualify that for our listeners? So why?
Okay, so Ebola, everyone knows about Ebola. Everyone's heard of Ebola. Yeah. And there's about an 80% mortality, I think, of contracting Ebola. 80% chance you're going to die. It's dreadfully sad. It's awful. With rabies, once you show clinical signs, 100% you're going to die. No treatment.
100%.
100%. So your only window of surviving it, if you're bitten by a rabid dog, is to get some post-exposure prophylaxis vaccines and maybe a bit of immunoglobulin.
Just because you got bit, before you have any signs, just go say, I got bit by a dog, I got no idea, go get treatment. You have no idea if you actually have it. That's the only way.
That's your only chance. See, that's your hope, that's your window. And that's why the education's the big thing. So
yeah, okay, so I got two questions, because as you know, Jason and I, we are American, and so our outlook is quite obviously America-centric, right? Even though we're classing it up today with an international perspective. A lot of... We don't have
bigger TVs or any of that kind of stuff. So we're jealous.
And real football. Okay, so...
Much smaller burgers. It's down.
So in America, I frequently have people, sometimes professionals, sometimes colleagues, tell me that we don't have a rabies problem in the U.S. because even though the mortality rate, or the number of people who get the disease that die outside the U.S. is 100%, in America, they'll say, well, no one dies. And they'll point to Ebola as an example. They'll say, well, in Africa, if you get Ebola in the Congo, your mortality rate is somewhere between 45 and 85%. But in America, our Ebola mortality rate was 10%. So is it similar with rabies? Is the mortality rate different depending on where you get it?
Well, I think, the honest truth is, in places where you've got great access to healthcare, then you've got a good chance. You know, in the places, a lot of the places I work in, developing countries, which are just tough, hard places in which to live. You know, the hospitals in some of these countries. So take Blantyre City in Malawi, which is a country in southern Africa. The hospital there in 2012 annually reported the highest incidence of child rabies deaths from any single institution in the whole of Africa. And that hospital, when I visited it, so I was there, I've been there a bit, but when I first went about 3-4 years ago, they just had a period of 3 months with no water or electricity supplying the hospital. So they don't even have syringes or vaccines. So if you contract or you need to get your post-exposure prophylaxis, it's a mission and a half. Because
you can't even get water. Like
you got to get to the hospital.
That's unbelievable, right? That's unbelievable for us talking on our computer and looking at it. It's almost hard to believe, right? It's hard to imagine.
Yeah, and then you got to pay, you know, so it's a big job.
But I think, though, in the United States, if you start to show symptoms of rabies, you're toast. Like, it's nearly 100% fatal, just like it is outside of America. So the key is to get that prophylaxis, right? The treatment before you have the onset of the symptoms, right?
Yeah, so it's the fancy thing is rabies, a neurotropic lyssavirus. And what it does is it tracks up peripheral nerves and it causes, this is where everyone's just turning off, going, what's it doing? Because I got my clever hat on.
That's like a 7-syllable word, man. You got to watch that.
So
go ahead and nerd out. Do it.
Tracks up peripheral nerves and it causes a fatal encephalitis. So it essentially causes a massive temperature in your brain and it shuts you down and you die. It doesn't matter which country and where you are. So the only way to stop it is to stop that virus tracking up your nerves. And that's why the onset of clinical symptoms change depending on where you're bitten by a rabid dog. So it's transmitted through saliva. That's the other big thing to talk about. And 98.9% of all cases are transmitted through dog bites. So dogs are regarded as the reservoir host. But in the States, you know, raccoons will have it. Warm-blooded animals will have this disease and can transmit it. It's just that, you know, it's mainly people, mainly kids, come into contact with dogs. And rabid dogs will bite them, and then they might not tell their parents because they don't want to get in trouble.
Sure.
Or they might, pretend it hasn't happened or whatever. And then they'll get very sick. And when you go to hospital, the clinical signs, because it's like an infection in your brain, can look like, say, cerebral malaria. And that's a really easy diagnosis because malaria is really, really common. So the other really sad fact about rabies is it's often misdiagnosed. And there was a paper looking at rabies cases in Tanzania, and it's by Professor Cleveland, and she estimated that for every one rabies case confirmed, there were 100 kids had died of rabies.
Wow.
And then there was a study, in fact, also at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Blantyre, and over a 6-month window, 11.6% of cerebral malaria cases were misdiagnosed were actually rabies. So very sad.
If she thinks that for every single case of rabies that's confirmed and diagnosed, there's 100 others that are misdiagnosed. So that means that the roughly 55 to 60,000 deaths worldwide, we could put 2 zeros on the end of that.
Oh, easy. Yeah, absolutely. There's a stigma as well. So in dying in hospital in many countries, especially poor countries, is just all around bad news on every level, as you'd probably expect, because obviously you die, but your family then often have to pay to take your body out the hospital. So it costs money. So in a lot of these hospitals, they'll try and ship out the dying patients before they actually die. And then they die in the villages and it's not recorded at all. So a lot of that goes on. And then there's also stigma because, it's not great to be, having died of rabies. That's just not a great way to go. And the other thing is that to test that it was rabies is horrible because you've got to get a brain sample. And people don't really want that for their kid.
Yeah, culturally, that's really difficult in any culture.
It's all around the weepy. I mean, it's hard to bring this back other than to say that the good news, and this is in fact there's rabies in the States, of course, there is rabies in the US, but you have a really robust vaccination program that goes on and that has sorted it out. And that, in essence, is the key. It's that simple. It's vaccinating in say, Africa or India, it's vaccinating dogs, and that establishes a herd immunity, gets rid of it.
So that's really the key thing that I'm glad you bring that up, because I want to point out, in the United States, we have an incredibly robust public health system. And one component of that, people may not realize, is massive campaigns, not only to vaccinate dogs and cats, but also to stop the stray animals roaming. So those are the two foundational elements. And so this is a horrible disease. So like, what do we do about it? And I think you're doing some incredible things to try to do something about it in these underdeveloped nations.
Yes, please bring some good news to the show. So
Yeah.
far, not
Good
great.
news.
Not great news. Bring some
America's
good news.
awesome. America's awesome. You've got oral rabies. What else do you want? This is better than America's great. This is America's awesome. So you're rabies control. Wow. Great news, guys. Well done, you.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so what are we doing in other places? Because those kids are dying from rabies.
This is the really cool thing. This is the really, really cool thing. So one charity is never enough. So I have another charity called Worldwide Veterinary Services, which provides vet aid to help charities, non-profit organizations in places where there are no vets. So we help animals in places where there's no veterinary care. So we send vet teams and stuff. And that's how I got into the whole rabies thing. So I'm a dad, I got 4 young kids. I saw a lot of rabies. It was sad. It's as simple as that. And then I realized that even a simpleton like me could help address it by vaccinating dogs, because that's not rocket science. It's vaccinating dogs.
Yeah.
And that is the whole crux of it. So we set up this charity, Mission Rabies, and then we go to rabies hotspots and we count the number of dogs in an area, and then we'll get a team together of international volunteers, and then we'll go in there and we will blast that area. So we will go to somewhere like Blantyre City and we will spend 12 days and we will vaccinate 35,000 dogs with volunteers from 18 different countries around the world, and let them American. And they'll come over.
That math pretty quick.
You got to take a breath on that, because you threw out some crazy numbers there, Luke. So 35,000 dogs vaccinated in 8 days.
It was 12 days, that one. 12 days.
12 days. We
that's much more.
4 days.
That's much
Always
more.
be better.
12. We thought you were a superhero, but 12.
Yeah.
Come on, anybody can do 12.
Anyone can do it at 12. No, that is just incredible. So it's really a massive undertaking to mount that sort of response.
Yeah, and it's cheap. That's the other crazy thing. It's cheap. So we've just built this really on goodwill from people who care, and that's how you beat any of the diseases. It's just getting enough people who care, who give a damn, who want to just do something cool that's fun and can make a bit of a difference. And I think for me, that's the really great bit, because when do you really get that chance in life, to do something cool? So you get in your box, go, look, let's just have a bash, and we get up. We do it, and we've now 4 years. We're just celebrating our 1,000,000th dog vaccinated, which is
wow.
In our project sites.
Sound effects on In Other News, so we can do some crazy applause.
Yeah,
1,000,000th dog vaccinated. That's incredible. That's incredible. But
Did that dog get a shopping spree or anything? Come on. That's what happens on the 1,000,000th customer, right? What's going on there?
Well, we're gonna get a tuk-tuk in because we're just gonna have a tuk-tuk party. And that's the thing, because those little 3-wheel taxis that we spend a lot of time in.
Yeah.
and so that's our thing. So we're going to do a little tour in the UK. We should get over to the US. Obviously, that'd be cheap. But we can vaccinate a lot of dogs instead of doing. I'll send you a picture.
Excellent. We would love a picture, and we'll post it for the listeners. So because I know I am familiar with Mission Rabies, and I know that for you, the other thing that you guys really spend a lot of time doing is near and dear to your heart is educating the children, because it's a twofold effort. You want to vaccinate the dogs, but then don't you spend a fair amount of time educating children? Yeah.
So you've hit the nail absolutely on the head. The education bit is just so fantastically vital, because it's all about teaching the kids, how to avoid getting bitten, and what to do if that happens.
I'm glad you clarified that, because I thought maybe you were going to educate the kids about how awful rabies is and just really depress these poor kids. But I'm glad we're talking about how to handle dogs.
Yeah. It would be a bad lesson. Let's get bitten by a dog. Sorry, that's it.
Sorry.
You're toast.
And it's a horrible death. You'd rather get eaten alive by rats. This is terrible.
So
educate the kids about dog and dog behavior. Go.
Yeah, and you know what? In places where there isn't any vaccine, like Malawi, that is honestly life-saving knowledge. And we've got loads of examples of that. So as a little kid, so we heard a story about a teacher who'd been bitten by a dog and went on the way to the school. And then the school kids told her, she said, look, they said, you've got to go and get your post-exposure. You've got to wash the wound, 15 minutes, you've got to go and get it. And she did, because the kids told her, because they'd gone to a rabies lesson.
Wow.
And dog that bit her actually turned out was positive, was a rabid dog. So they saved her life.
All around good story.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's very cool. So we've done 3 million kids because we're in millions now. Let's just go really big. 3 million kids.
3 million kids, 1 million dogs.
Yeah. Bang.
Wow.
Changing the world.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So we know that the hospitals and the public health infrastructure in these developing nations isn't the same. But is that, I mean, if it was just that wouldn't that be something that would be kind of not a quick fix, but you could fix? What are the kind of the other contributing factors that you know of? And you've mentioned a few cultural ones, but really, what do you think are the real contributing factors to rabies continuing to kill so many kids?
Well, I think in places like Africa and India, for example, well, India, which is the world's worst rabies area by far. There's at least 20,000 deaths there a year in India. The dogs are everywhere. So cultural, you just said it, cultural is a big thing, but the dogs are literally everywhere. And there's lots of rubbish everywhere, and the dogs live on the streets, they breed on the streets, and they carry disease. And there's a bit of misconception because I understand it, but there's policies like, let's kill all the dogs. So if these dogs carry a deadly disease, we should just kill all the dogs.
Sure, makes perfect sense.
You know, they would think that. But the kicker is that you kill all the dogs in places like India. What it does is it just creates a vacuum, and other dogs move into those areas. Dogs are territorial. We all know that. And you need the dogs to live in those areas and make sure they're vaccinated, but they need to keep other dogs away, and they can do that. So it's trying to cover that science bit as well. And that's a really big, hard challenge. And also this thing about herd immunity. So you'll know all this much better than me. You can probably explain it much better, but I'm deep in the hole now, so I'll power on.
Power on. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about herd immunity. That's a big, you hear that all the BuzzFeed, all the news things, all this, it's crazy. So let's hear what Classy Luke has to say.
Right, Classy Luke. I've never been called Classy Luke. But
there you go.
I'm going to get a badge, Classy Luke. The guys will be throwing things at me in the office. I go, no, I'm classy.
I'm classy today.
Yeah. So essentially, infectious disease, they're categorized by something called R0 value. And that's really its rate of infectivity. So if I had measles or flu, they might have a R0, say 15 or 20. And what that means in English is that I will infect 15 or 20 people before I either get better or I die, one of the two. And that is its R0. Okay, so rabies has an R0 of between 1 and 2, which is quite low as far as these things go. But it means, for example, a rabid dog will infect 1 or 2 other warm-blooded animals before it dies. That is the general stat. And that rate of infectivity will change a little bit depending on population densities and all that kind of other stuff. But it's with rabies, it's fairly, because they die quite quickly once they've got the disease, they really only ever get the chance to infect 1 or 2 other animals before they die. So what you've got to do is you've got to establish this herd immunity to skew the probability. So the odds on the animal essentially dying before it can infect another animal is more likely than not. Yeah. So if a dog is vaccinated, it cannot contract the disease if it's bitten by a rabid dog. Yeah. So what you've got to do to establish your herd immunity, your posh fancy herd immunity, is you have to vaccinate enough dogs so that the odds on it biting another vaccinated dog are really high. Then it dies and the disease dies out. That's the plan.
So you create that firewall around the places where people are.
It's a better phrase. Firewall. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We're taking
what's more contemporary? What is just a firewall? Everyone knows what a firewall is. That's why I can't break into the bank. It's great. It's fantastic.
I should have said that. I should have said that at the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean,
herd immunity. What was I doing? Firewall. That's it.
Classy Luke. Classy Luke.
I've been done by the Americans again. I've just been picked there again. A cooler word.
So listeners, we're going to take a very quick break. Let you percolate on the R0 value and the firewall. And when we come back, we're going to hear a little bit about how you might be able to get involved and help stop the spread of this dreadful disease across the globe. So we'll be right back in just a moment.
Has your pet ever suffered from digestive issues, anxiety, or joint pain? We want to address these issues and more with high-grade CBD oil from Alpha, made specifically for your furry friends. Using Alaskan salmon oil as a carrier, Alpha Pet's 500 CBD oil is lab-tested for quality, consistency, and safety. Plus, we are giving Pet Life Radio listeners 25% off and free shipping with code PL25 for a limited time. So visit myalphacbd.com/dogs now. That's myalphacbd.com/dogs. Because your furry friends are family.
Vet Candy makes your life easier with scientific news, clinical updates, and expert lifestyle tips. Sign up for free at myvetcandy.com and start making your life sweeter.
Let's talk pets
Let's talk pets
on Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
So, welcome back, where we are talking with Dr. Luke Gamble all about rabies with his great efforts through Mission Rabies as well as the World Veterinary Services. And we've heard lots of things about, roughly 60,000 deaths from rabies worldwide. The majority of those are kids, and the majority of them, more than 90% of them, are from a dog bite worldwide. And so now that this clever Brit has brought us this incredible information, we're now going to let him maybe illuminate us on how we can get involved in working to stamp out this horrible disease. So what can our listeners do? Because I know they're wondering right now, this is a horrible situation. No one wants to think of a
desperate.
kid.
They're all desperate to go to these places.
Desperate to help.
Rabies.
Yes.
Rabid dog. I think everyone listening to this is going, yes, this is a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
We're going to sign up. And good on them, because that is the spirit. And the way to do it is to go to missionrabies.com and click on volunteer. And if they can't for any chance make it, even though they really want to, they can always donate, and we'll just go and vaccinate some dogs for them. So it's a win-win. There's always a way that we can just, as this team, get out there and save the world. Rock and roll.
That's right. And you could do it from your own recliner online by donating.
You can. You can.
That's right.
And you know what? It sounds nice, but it does work. We've now eliminated, so there's no rabies deaths in the whole Indian state of Goa in the last 18 months, entirely because of our project, which is awesome.
That's incredible.
Firewall that.
Yeah.
That's right, firewall. You guys joke, but I guarantee you, I absolutely guarantee you, there are people in the industry that really had no idea that it was still, we kind of joke, but we're talking about it because it is still a thing, and we live in our wonderful world where, hey, we vaccinate all the dogs, we don't ever talk about it, but I, for one, was shocked at the numbers you were throwing out. It's still not a thing. It's a huge thing. And if we don't...
It's just sad. It's because it's the disease of the poorest of the poor. So all of these diseases, to get serious again for a sec, this is generally how it rolls. These neglected, tropical, hideous diseases are diseases that affect the poorest of the poor, the most vulnerable in the world. And these guys don't vote. They live in huts with limited electricity. They're not generally regarded as priority sort of people in these sort of places. So it's very, very, very sad. And it's nice just to help these little kids.
Absolutely. Well, you never know what those little kids are going to grow up to be. And so cutting off their future before they get started with such a horrific disease as rabies, it's something I think everyone can agree on. And these days we have to look far and wide sometimes for those things everyone can agree on, that it's worthwhile to pursue the elimination of such a horrific pathogen. And so now I do want to ask you a little bit. I know that folks out there, now that they know you as Classy Luke, they want to know a little bit about how do you come by all this energy? Because folks, it's not like he has nothing else going on. He's got 4 little bitty kids, and he and his wife have a practice together. And so I'm going to back out of the conversation because Jason also has multiple little kids. And so how do you do that?
4. I was smart. I stopped at 3.
It's 3. Just weak. It's just weak. Once just one more. That's all it takes. And you're there.
You're going to commit.
Yeah.
You
still
twins?
not. You don't look over the hill.
Did you cheat? Did you have twins?
No.
Okay.
No,
we just 4 individual people. Wow. Good.
Yeah. We just powered on. Yeah.
I forgot. We started talking about kids. I forgot what we're supposed to talk about.
We've got to draw the line. It's going back to me. I'll get them out there. It's my army of vaccinators. That's the thing. They're a little bit older, and I get the green light.
Yeah, not much older though. I would imagine you got to, as soon as they can help. They got to go. I mean,
yeah, they get under the houses, they get in the holes. It's great.
Just go get that one. He's smaller than you. Go grab that one.
Yeah.
That's right. But you and your wife also have a practice together, yeah? And it's a mixed animal practice,
mixed animal practice, yeah. Jack of all trades, master of none. So we live in the New Forest, which is about 100 miles southwest of London, and it's very quaint and nice, and we've got lots of donkeys. I love donkeys.
Is it classy? It's classy?
Incredibly classy. It's classy, not classy. It's
classy. Get it right.
Yeah, pedantic.
For sure.
And there's no rabies here. Absolutely none. Because who would want to live in a place with rabies? Let's be honest.
Yeah. Right.
Other than America, which has
Americans.
Just thought I'd drop that in.
Yeah.
We've got. I'm very lucky. My wife's awesome. She's amazing. So we've got the 4 young kids, and they're great. But the thing is, once you get into stuff like the work with, so the WVS stuff, when I go on these trips and help, to be honest, there's a lot of adventure and there's a huge amount of fun, and it's really hard to give that up because there's a selfish pleasure in just having these cool adventures, doing stuff I love doing without any of the economical constraints. But with the rabies thing, there's just that draw that if we're not doing it, who else is going to? And you're kind of sucked into it then, and so there's that side of it as well. But yeah, as a team, we're on it. And my practice, all the vets there, part of their deal is they give a bit of time each year and go off on the trips. And charity office across the road for the practice, and there's a team there.
And you go on awesome podcasts and spread the news even further to recruit yet more vaccinators, because that's what we all want to be, is vaccinators. That's I'm the word for it. I am a vaccinator. That's what I need.
Yes.
Right? I need one of those.
They can. We've established you can give money, or they can now send their children. We've just established that.
Wait.
That's right.
What's the age limit?
Health and safety dream.
That's right.
Jason, Neil needs to go. My youngest nephew.
I've already got him a ticket. He's on his own. He's fine. He's 8. He can handle it.
How old is Neil?
Actually, I said 8. He's actually 6.
6 is 5.
I don't know. I lose track all the time. So.
Yeah. Anything over 3 is okay.
Oh, good. Excellent. They can walk and talk, right? So
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. But in all fairness, we talk about in the veterinary profession these days, stuff like work-life balance, and we are concerned about veterinary well-being. And so, if you're looking for something to do to maybe remind yourself about why we do what we do in our profession, a trip such as this with Mission Rabies, where you really can see an instant impact, where you are helping to save those lives, there's nothing better to remind you about why we became who we are and the professionals that we are than a trip like that. So maybe you want to consider doing it with a colleague, with someone that you work with, or an old classmate. But I think it could be a really fun way to really just remind yourselves that there's a reason we became veterinarians.
We became veterinarians to save the world. And there's a much better example than this right here. And I say it with jest, but in actuality, it's true. 100% true. And we can go over all the terrible numbers again, but it's true.
That's why we've done the numbers, because it is simply because of the vet community. So we've had the WSAVA, we've had so many US vets, an increasing number actually, all coming out, helping, volunteering on the trips, and we learn loads. So anyone comes out, they've often got another idea that enhances our protocol and our way of doing it. Because let's be honest, I'm a vet from the New Forest. As I can learn. So,
you may be classy, but you don't know it all, right?
Exactly, and it's hard to admit it. But we do, and it just is great. So you get guys out who are brilliant at tech, and that's how we got this app. And now that allows us to epidemiologically log on all the dogs we vaccinate, and has this robust science behind it. We partner with University of Edinburgh to do that, and CDC are helping us so much with the strategy, and we're partnering them on projects, and they're now using our app for all their projects. And we've got a whole thing developing this integrated bite case management system, which we're putting in hospitals as a result in these countries, and it is just building and building and building, but it will only keep doing that if we get behind it as a profession. And that's actually what makes it so much fun. If we end up going on a trip and it isn't fun. It's very hard to get everyone to go back the next year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you think?
It's got to be a win for everyone. It's got to be a win-win all round. And to be honest, there's just nothing better. If, as I said, there were vets from 18 vets and vet techs and vet nurses and paravets, but there were volunteers from 18 different countries on the big project we did in Malawi. 18 different nationalities. Yeah. It's just brilliant. It's such a crack. Really great.
Yeah, it does sound like a good time. You know what? It sounds like a great thing from which in the evenings one could, record an In Other News podcast. I mean,
I thought you were going to say great thing to do when you're on honeymoon, which would be fine as well.
Yeah, me too. I thought that's where you were going also. I thought you're right. You darn right. It's such a crack. Get over there. It's fun. I always like a good crack. Great.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
But yeah, podcasts.
Brilliant.
If the internet's working, that's the only slight issue. It's good at most of the project sites. A couple it might be a little crackly.
Excellent. Okay, so one more question that I think our listeners might want to know, which is, have you ever been bit by one of these dogs when you're out and about?
Have I been?
They're not friendly, right?
No, they're not. They're not in the best frame of mind.
It's
say.
Vaccinating Fido, I suppose.
Okay, so maybe a better question is,
I've been bitten
craziest
plenty.
story.
Yes, I've been bitten plenty, which is sad to say, but is true because obviously, you're trying to catch a lot of dogs in nets and things.
Yeah.
I've had to get the post-exposure prophylaxis a few times, having been very close with some rabid dogs. Yeah. And been sprayed.
How many times? Because I'm going to bet that I can beat you. How many times have you got post-exposure proofy?
You know what? I honestly don't know. I remember taking it in the queue for an airport in India once because I'd forgotten to take it and I had it in my bag. And I in my arm, and then I had about 10 security just appeared from nowhere at the Indian airport. Walked me off thinking I was taking drugs in the airport queue. And because my explanation was so utterly, almost unbelievable and outrageous that I was taking a rabies shot, which I had with me, I'd forgotten to take because I've been traveling a lot. So I just bought it and I had it in my bag. And I thought, I forgot to take, stuck it in my arm just so we could check in. None of them could believe it.
I forgot to give myself a shot. My bad. Let me just give myself a shot.
But that's exactly what happened. And
that's awesome.
So that was a comedy moment, but it was all right. Yeah. They let me through. It's fine.
Well, I have had the post-exposure prophy 5 times.
That is nothing. That is just so lame.
That's so lame.
I haven't been hanging out in Africa and India. I mean,
you're just so much better at doing this stuff than me because obviously I just constantly getting exposed with it. But I've got quite a high titer, so I don't think I'll probably need to worry too much.
You could look at selling that plasma. I mean, it's enriched, right?
Maybe.
It's enriched. Yes, absolutely. If this whole veterinary thing doesn't work out, Luke, I mean, you've got an option there.
It's all your bodily fluids.
Yeah.
Bodily fluids.
Oh, God.
All right. This is not that podcast.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that that about covers it. If you have not already Googled Mission Rabies or gone to missionrabies.com, you should go there. We'll put a link on the podcast page with our blurb, if you will. Go donate, talk to some folks, make some people aware, spread the word. Rabies is still a thing. Rabies is still killing people worldwide, even if you don't see it happening in America. It is happening.
New York Times article. Big thing about it. We're in it. It's cool.
Yeah.
Recently. Yeah.
And it's the cheapest vaccine on the shelf in any veterinary practice today. So make sure that you keep your pets up to date. Make sure that you know when they are exposed that you should go to your veterinarian. If they tangle with a raccoon in the United States or a bat or an unknown dog or cat, get them boosted so that you don't have to get post-exposure prophy and your dog doesn't have to suffer through the disease. So thank you so very much, Dr. Luke Gamble, for classing it up.
It was great fun and learned a lot today. A lot.
Yeah.
Guys, I loved it. I'm going to get a little firewall in the office here. It's all going to happen.
We all learned some stuff today.
That's right. So once again, thanks for tuning in to Another News. If you want to reach us, you want to send us some topic ideas. If we read your email on a subsequent podcast, we'll send you some swag, some vet candy yoga mats, or some Betsy Johnson lunch boxes. We've got some great stuff. Or if you just want to sound off and let us know what you think, you can email us at jen@myvetcandy.com.
Again, I'm not sure why yours is always first, but if you want to email her, great. You can email me at jason@myvetcandy.com.
That's right. And thank you so much for listening. We'll see you again on In Other News.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.